Mercedes Formula One team. Welcome back to the Junior Programme series. We've covered Ferrari, we've covered Red Bull, and now we come to the team that have been, I think it's fair to say, dominating Formula One since 2014, the beginning of the hybrid era. They've won every single season since 2014. They've been absolutely smashing it, on course this year to win their 6th Drivers' and Constructors' Championships in a row. Lewis Hamilton himself on for his 6th Drivers' Championship at the end of this season. Of course, they've won a race every single year since 2012. Nico Rosberg taking the team's first victory in decades, all the way back at the Chinese Grand Prix in that season. The following year, Lewis Hamilton joined the team, winning his first race at the Hungarian Grand Prix. He only won one race that particular year. However, 2014, when the hybrid era kicked into force, gone with the V8 engines, and in came Mercedes dominance. Hamilton won 2014 and 15. Then Nico Rosberg won the 2016 World Championship, famously retired at the end of that season, and in came Valtteri Bottas in 2017 and 2018. Hamilton winning both of those championships, and in 2019 both drivers are still at the team, and it looks like once again Hamilton is going to claim the drivers' title. That's your brief history of Mercedes Formula One team. Now, let's look forward. Let's look into the future. Young drivers is the name of the game here today. What we do, or what I have done in our previous 2 videos covering Ferrari and Red Bull, we look at 5 young drivers. Now, Mercedes only have 5 young drivers, so it's not as big a content pool to pull from. However, I think what that proves, before we've even dived into anything, I think it proves that they're very picky in the drivers they choose. And historically, Mercedes young drivers have gone on to do pretty well in Formula One. You can kind of count Lewis Hamilton, you can kind of count Valtteri Bottas, but who you can definitely count is Pascal Wehrlein, who you all know I rate very highly in Formula 1 and is now applying his trade in Formula E and doing very well over there. Esteban Ocon, who we'll be covering in today's video, he is one of the 5 Mercedes current young drivers. George Russell also, those 2 will be in Formula 1 next year. Ocon is their Mercedes test and reserve driver in 2019. George Russell, though, well, we'll start with him first because the 3 other young drivers are very young drivers, so there's not as much to talk about them. But as I just said, Mercedes picks these drivers for a reason, and that's why you're here. You want to see who the future drivers are, who are the future of Mercedes, who are future Formula 1 drivers. So if you're new around here, feel free to subscribe. Let's stop messing around and let's look at our first driver, George Russell. So as many of you already know, George is no stranger to Formula 1. He's been applying his trade in Formula 1 now for several months, for a total of 16 races so far in 2019. Sadly though, not all of you will have seen George Russell because he's in the Williams and he's always at the back. Sorry Williams fans, I've always got to have at least one dig per video. No, Russell, I think it's fair to say, has had a really strong junior career. Now in these videos we only look back as far as 2016, where in 2016 George was 3rd place in Euro F3. He then, the year after in 2017, went on to be GP3 champion, and in 2018 in a really strong field in Formula 2 became champion in his first ever season, ahead of the likes of Lando Norris, Nicholas Latifi, Nick De Vries and Alex Albon. As I said, this year, sadly, he is in the Williams, and it's been a less than competitive season, to put it lightly. He's the only driver in the 2019 grid to not have scored a single point so far in 2019. However, I've got to put my hands up, and I have to be fair to George. It's been a really good season, I think, for his rookie year. Yes, it's very difficult to compare him. At the moment, our only comparison is his teammate Robert Kubica, who is currently completely dominating in the qualifying battle and in the race battle as well. Although Kubica's the driver in Williams that has a point, Russell has the edge as well. It's been difficult to really judge and compare him to other drivers in the field because of the uncompetitive nature of that Williams car. However, Russell has proved that he can fight with other cars. He has finished in front of other midfield drivers such as Kevin Magnussen so far in 2019. He's a driver with a lot of potential and I think will go very far in Formula 1. The other driver that we are aware of is Esteban Ocon. I don't want to spend too much time on Russell and Ocon because most of us are aware of who they are. But they are in the Young Driver Academy, so I think it's only fair. And to people that are new to Formula 1 this year, they might not be aware. So Esteban Ocon joined Formula 1 midway through 2016. Sadly, took the place of Rio Haryanto, a rising star in Formula 1. No, sorry, that's a joke for new Formula 1 fans. Haryanto wasn't the best, bless him, but he joined Manor halfway through the year, was teammates with Pascal Wehrlein, then got the go-ahead to Force India for 2017 ahead of Wehrlein. Career best finish of 5th place in Spain and in Mexico that year, and actually in his first full season of Formula 1, finished 8th in the standings, 1 place behind his teammate Sergio Perez. But I think that's a really strong job from Ocon, and it's one that people forget now in 2019. In 2018, continued with Force India. The car wasn't as good and the team was heavily lacking in funding, so much so that sadly they went into administration during the summer break. Luckily, they were saved by Lawrence Stroll and his consortium, but that's how it's evolved that he's not in a race seat this year, because Lawrence Stroll, father of Lance Stroll moved to the team, nowhere for Ocon to go, and in the game of chess and politics that the driver market is in Formula 1, Ocon was without a seat. However, his impressive performances, especially in 2017, has landed him a role in Renault. Of all places, he's jumping ship from Mercedes. Well, not jumping ship, he's still going to be a Mercedes young driver, but he will have a 2-year contract at Renault alongside Daniel Ricciardo in a midfield team that continues to improve. And I personally think, and whilst I'm gutted for Hulkenberg, I think this is a really good place for Ocon to continue growing his own experience and also further his Formula 1 career. But let's move into some more unheard of names, starting with this man. Apologies for pronunciation, it's a real theme in these videos, but I think I've got these okay. Andrea Kimi, I love the Kimi bit, Antonelli. I'm going to go with Antonelli, because there's no I in the middle. Antonelli, 13 years old, Italian racing driver, currently in karting, and that's why I've said that some of these guys, one of them's in Formula 4, to be fair. However, some of these drivers are particularly young and it's very hard to judge whether they're going to be able to make it to Formula 1. However, you can see from Antonelli's statistics, he's not been too bad. In 2016, when he was just 10 years old, came 6th in the World Super Karting 60 Mini Championship. Now, I've had to do my research, but this is a strong field of drivers in the younger category, so that's nothing to disrespect, so much so that he then moved up into the next series of the WSK, which is the Super Master Series, which is pretty much the top rank of karting. 3rd overall at his first attempt in 2017. 2018 he was 3rd again, but in the Winter Cup was 1st. So I think there's a Winter Championship alongside the main bulk of the season. And in 2019 he won the Super Masters Championship and once again won the Winter Cup. Expect him next season to maybe make the jump into Formula 4 somewhere. I imagine it'll be Italian Formula 4, so keep an eye out for that. Many drivers in every single young driver video we've done so far has been able to do really well in Italian F4 and ADAC F4, which is German F4. So I imagine he'll split his time between those two next year. And we'll have to wait and see if he then makes the jump to Formula 3. And if he's that good, potentially could make the jump from Formula 1 there. But I really say most of these drivers now, I expect to make the jump to Formula 2. An even younger driver now, Alex Powell, first ever Jamaican driver to be linked in the Formula 1 Young Driver Programme. 12 years old though, so again, it's very difficult. These are 2 of the youngest drivers that I'm going to cover in this entire series we're planning on doing. So, Alex, the youngest driver we're going to be covering, not much to go off of. However, in 2017 and 18, this young man drove in 9 series / semi-series, but he drove in more than that, but in 9 series, he was in the top 3 in the standings. Very, very, very impressive credentials. World Superkarting, 60 Mini that we just spoke about a second ago, 5th in 2019, and in the European version was 2nd in 2019. Again, not a lot to go off with this young man. However, Mercedes have signed him. And I said right back at the beginning of the video, Mercedes only sign the drivers who they think are the best. This is not a big academy. This is not a Ferrari academy where they have several young drivers in Formula 2, in Formula 3, that they can use to be test and reserve drivers. Mercedes are usually much more picky with the drivers they choose out. And they've decided that Alex, despite the fact he was only 11 when they signed him, they only signed him this year, back in March, they saw something in him. Multiple wins so far in 2019. 2020 looks like he could move up into the Master Series, which we just spoke about Antonelli. And you got to try and question whether he's going to be able to win that. But as soon as he wins that, he's only 12. And already, it looks like he's moving into that category next year. Progression, sometimes in these series, and that's why I've tried in the other teams. I've not picked out young drivers because it's so difficult to predict. But these two are looking pretty impressive. But the, I suppose, most experienced driver in their young driver academy that hasn't been in Formula 1 is this man, Paul Aron. Our 5th and final member we're going to be talking about today. It's a little bit easier to talk about this guy because he has been in Italian F4 and German F4 for some races in 2019. But there is a bit of a sticking point, and if you, follow feeder series of Formula 1 and the younger categories, what you're seeing on screen now you might find quite interesting. Anyway, 2016, World Superkarting 60 Mini, won the whole thing. So we just spoke about that with the other two Mercedes young drivers. If you win that, usually it puts you in quite good stead to go into higher championships. 2017, there's no official record of him driving anywhere. However, I find this unrealistic, but Mercedes, the information they put out on their young drivers is very, very limited. So I've left that blank for a moment. However, even if he did take a year out, 2018, he comes back, Euro Karting Championship, wins the whole thing. So his young driver credentials looking impressive indeed. Then last year, or this season, last season, that's what I'm trying to say. Italian F4, 3rd overall in his first season. However, he did win the Rookie Championship comfortably and outright on the podium multiple times and won a race halfway through the year. So I expect him to be in Italian F4 again next year. However, what I just was alluding to a minute ago, what's really interesting is he's driving for Prima, a team historically linked with Ferrari. Drivers like Mick Schumacher are currently driving for Prima. Robert Schwartzman in F3 driving for Prima. So it's very possible that Paul Aron could move up to Formula 3 next year. With the likes of Schwartzman, you'd imagine Armstrong moving away from Formula 3 into Formula 2. A space could open for Aron to move there. And Mercedes could be looking at a guy that potentially could be making it into Formula 1 over the next 4 or 5 years. That's your lot for Mercedes. Again, it's surprising. A lot of people don't expect it. Their young driver program isn't as meaty, isn't as juicy and big as the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari, or even McLaren in the past. However, what we have seen from the likes of Wehrlein, Ocon, Russell, the ones they do pick are usually very good. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. What team should we do next? There's still a few more to have a look at, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and you've made it this far, feel free to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.